My heart wants Betterbiev, but my brain says Bivol. So I don't know. And
Oh.
my plums are just excited to be here. Like that.
My plums are just. All right. Welcome to another episode of Two Fight Fans, where we talk about all things in combat sports. I'm one fight fan, Colin.
And I'm the other Stuart.
All right. So this weekend we've got a UFC Apex card and Betterbiev and Bivol.
Apex. I believe this is the 98th Apex card that we've had.
So it's UFC Vegas 97, but technically, there have been 104 events at the Apex already.
Really?
Yeah.
What were the other ones?
There were a number of UFC like main cards there because of COVID.
Oh, you mean pay-per-views that were there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll still give it to the UFC though. Those weren't Apex slop cards. They weren't the bargain bin overflow area. So, what should we talk about first? Because I'm looking at this Apex card and there's not a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And for the boxing match, there's just one fight. Sorry if my voice is shredded. I was at a hockey game last night, screaming and hooting and hollering like a low-level primate. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah. Why don't we just talk about the main events for both of those cards then?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've been like super excited about Betterbiev and Bivol, so why don't you lead us off with that? Because I've only seen a little bit of each of them. I've read a little bit about them, but you are like super hot and bothered for all of this. So
yeah, to give everyone, if you haven't been listening to past episodes, just a taste, just a little teaser of how exciting this fight is. This is in the way that Usyk and Fury was for the first 4-belt undisputed champion. This is for the first 4-belt undisputed champion at light heavyweight. We have 2 pound-for-pound greats right next to each other in most people's pound-for-pound rankings. They're both undefeated fighters. They both are coming in. They're about the same size, 6 foot, same reach. Artur Betterbiev has 100% finish rate. He's been dropped multiple times, but he always comes back and knocks out his opponents. Bivol is one of the only men to defeat Canelo and can defeat Canelo in a very, very convincing way. He also has an undefeated record, and he's coming in with a pretty decent win to KO ratio. This is for all the marbles, and it's with 2 all-time greats in this division. It's going to be fantastic. As for the complexion of the fight, so I've got 2 stats that I thought were pretty interesting. So, of course, Betterbiev has 100% knockout rate. He always is finishing his opponents. And another thing is of anyone that has a belt in boxing, he is one of the most active punchers of a belt holder. And for a light heavyweight, 175 pounds, that's pretty impressive to be a big guy throwing a lot. He averages 60 punches thrown per round.
Whoa,
I think that's more punches
than
either Pennington or Pena threw in their entire fucking fight. This guy, I think, to really simplify it, for someone who doesn't know about boxing and is trying to get into it, and also to make me sound smarter by claiming that I'm simplifying it, he really is a swarmer. This guy, he's a puncher, he's a swarmer, he's got great technique, but what he really tries to do is he tries to corner you. He doesn't have the best footwork, not like Bivol, but he gets you in the corner and then he just unloads on you. He just drowns you in volume. And eventually, he is a strong enough puncher where he can one-punch KO you, but mostly what he's trying to do is just continuously break you down, just make you constantly think, like, how am I defending this? What's happening? And then you're just getting, pieced up to the face. He goes to the body well. He just swarms and throws a huge amount of volume. He also is extremely defensively savvy, very rarely gets hit. though he has been dropped in his fights. But every fight that he's been dropped in, he comes back and absolutely demolishes his opponent. This guy is. There's so much hyperbole, but like this guy is a marauder, a brute, a guy that comes in and just destroys people. It's amazing.
Hmm.
On the flip side, you have Bivol, who of any person with a belt has the best defense. Only or his opponents are only able to land 12% of shots thrown on him.
Jeez.
12%. He totally nullifies people's offense. He's really fleet of foot. He sticks on the outside. He's extremely hard to corner, and he has the most active jab of any active champion in boxing today. He throws that jab consistently, and he lands that jab at a higher percentage than anyone holding a belt in boxing today. He's like if I were to use like a medieval war analogy, like he's an archer just sticking from the outside, just like constantly peppering people with his jab. And Betterbiev is like a Viking horde coming through and trying to like just lay waste to what he's doing. So the question really is, and the complexion of this fight is, can Betterbiev find Bivol? And in finding him and cornering him, will he not just get like cut to ribbons by Bivol's jab? Canelo couldn't figure out how to nullify the jab. Canelo couldn't even figure out how to get around that jab. And we all know Canelo is extremely defensively savvy. But Canelo doesn't have the power and the finishing instinct and the aggression of Betterbiev. So this is really a fight of, okay, Bivol's going to be trying to dance around. He needs to be perfect and stay on the outside and use that jab to keep the intense amount of volume. It's got to be kind of like a dam for him, holding back this like flood of water that's going to come at him. And then for Betterbiev, it's how can he, even if he drops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, because he can drop rounds in his fights, even if he drops that, does he only need the back six? Does he only need 4 or 5 rounds to really corner Betterbiev and then just unload on him? Yeah, that's great. That's a super intriguing kind of like simplified way of thinking of it. And these again, whoever wins this, especially if it's Bivol, if Bivol beats Betterbiev, or if Betterbiev continues, he knocks out a pound for pound great, unifies the titles in this division, and then he keeps his unblemished perfect record and unblemished 100% KO rate. I mean, this is it's all time great for the division, and it does mean that he's pound for pound. For me, he would be pound for pound 2 or at worst 3 at the moment, because yeah, this is great. This is rather than divisions of other pound for pound greats like Inoue or Terrence Crawford, where we're kind of watching to see them kind of style on their opponents because we know they just are so much more elevated than them. This is really a like true pick'em, and I think even in the odds, neither one of them is even a plus or minus 200. Everything is floating pretty close together. This is going to be a great fight. This is much must watch boxing. This is the best boxing can give you for actual skill and like stakes. It doesn't have the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson sex factor, but this is yeah. This is as good as it gets. This really is. There's not many matchups in boxing that can do this or will be able to do this for like the next 3 or 4 years. So it's something that you should not miss if you're a fight fan, because one, I doubt it's going to be a boring fight. It's going to be intriguing the entire way, and we're just probably not going to get pairings like this again for a little while because there's just not people in this position. This has been one of the fights that boxing fans have been clamoring for years and years and years. And there's been so much anticipation, and we're finally getting it. And if you're in America and you already have an ESPN Plus subscription for watching anything on ESPN Plus, this fight is not on pay-per-view. It's free. You can just log on to ESPN Plus.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, the ring walk times are around 3 p.m. Pacific, I believe. So 6 p.m. Eastern. And just, or maybe it's 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Anyway, yeah, log on, just watch it. You don't need to pay anything extra, and you're gonna get like Usyk and Fury, which turned out to, I mean, it's still my fight of the year. Turned out to be one of the best boxing matches I've seen in a long time. I've got a sneaking suspicion. I've got a little tingling. This will be the same. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Betterbiev Bivol.
Yeah. Okay. Well, say that again. Who do you think is gonna win here?
No, don't make me.
Come on. Okay,
I
because everything I've seen, everything I've read, it's like a classic matchup of like destructive power versus like skill, speed, and fluidity and footwork. So it's like yeah, what do you like? What are you most impressed with in boxing? So I like every writer, every like outlet right now has been like kind of split on this. No one is like really like favored in this fight. So
Which means that probably, if it goes the way everyone thinks, it's going to be extremely back and forth, extremely nip and tuck, like razor close, like two elite fighters showing off their skill, which is amazing. Or if one of them comes out there and blows the other one out of the water, it'll just show like how, it reminds me of kind of the Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, where everyone was like completely split down the middle. Is it going to be Spence? Is it going to be Crawford? This is probably going to be a really tough fight for both of them. It's going to come down to probably a very razor close decision. And then Crawford comes out there and styles on Spence for every minute of the fight. And if that happens in this, I mean, we might have somebody tied with Usyk for pound best. Like it would be. So who am I going with? All right. Okay. All right.
This is the hardest you've thought in any of our picks.
It's okay. I think if this fight took place in January of this year, or maybe let's say February or March, right after Archer Betterbiev beats Callum Smith, I would have picked Betterbiev. But he is 39 years old. He's almost 40.
Okay.
He hasn't fought since January of 2024. And in that time, Dmitry Bivol has had 2 fights in between Betterbiev's last fight. So he stayed active. Bivol is 31 or 32. So he's younger. And like right in his kind of like physical prime.
Yeah.
And Betterbiev is coming off, I think, a meniscus tear and surgery.
That's right. Yeah, because they were originally supposed to fight earlier this year.
Yeah. So it's he's a little Betterbiev is a little bit older. He definitely he never had as good a footwork and was never as fleet of foot as Bivol. But I think being out for almost a year and having knee surgery in between means that I wonder what his legs will kind of look like, especially trying to corner and track down Bivol. And Bivol has been staying active in that time. But the thing is, Bivol is not a thunderous puncher. He does have knockouts. But God, I don't. Right? It's kind of like he needs to stay perfect. It's like a Dark Souls boss. Like you have to like be dodging and rolling and moving and like can't get hit by any of these things and constantly poking and chipping away at the health. But Betterbiev is like, but if I hit you, if I get you in like a combo of attacks, like you're just going to get massacred. And so the question is, can Bivol for 12 rounds not get caught in that avalanche? Fuck, I don't. My heart wants Betterbiev, but my brain says Bivol. So I don't know. And my plums are just excited to be here. Like that.
My plums are just
yeah. So I actually like I can't pick. I picked Usyk definitively. My brain says Bivol. My heart says Betterbiev. But my heart has failed me many times at this past UFC event, so I don't know. I legit can't pick. I don't know. I think
this is fascinating to hear this.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, you're so opinionated and like always have a pick. I love it. I mean, I think that just speaks to the dynamics of this fight. But
yeah, I'm putting my money and my heart behind Archer Betterbiev.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think for 6 rounds, he's probably gonna have a really hard time, and it's gonna look like um, it's gonna cruise to a decision. But I think he just legitimately needs like 1 or 2 rounds of cornering Bivol to really
Yeah.
change the complexion of the fight. The question is, how late does that come? If that comes in round 9, is that too late to get the finish? And then he just wins 9, 10, 11, 12. But if he gets knockdowns, if he gets multiple knockdowns during that time, I mean, that's the thing, though. Is like he doesn't really get a ton of knockdowns in a fight. It's usually like
Just
one
one
and
and done.
done or like two and done, right? There's one knockdown preceding the finish.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's a great fight, though. It's a
Yeah.
great fight. Yeah, definitely watch it. And again, if you're in the greatest country on earth, America, it's free. So go watch it. It's not free in Canada, so I'm a little shit out of luck there, but I'll figure out. There's like there's ways. There's ways of finding stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so that's Bivol Betterbiev. I mean, do you have any inkling? The little did you ever watch the Bivol Canelo fight?
I watched highlights from it. I didn't watch the actual like full thing.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, Bivol was taking it to him the whole time. I
Yeah.
remember coming out of that, people being like, "Oh, it was kind of close," and like on rewatch, like it was not close at all. And Canelo really wants. I mean, that is interesting. Is if Bivol wins, Canelo really wants to fight him next. That's like the big fight that I think Canelo's
Oh, really?
out for. Yeah, um, like the of like a challenging fight. Otherwise, the mandatory for at least I think 2 of the belts that will be owned by either one of these men is Benavidez, the guy that everyone's been
Oh.
accusing Canelo of ducking. And I'm like, I'd watch that fight. I'd watch
Yeah,
Bivol
yeah.
or Betterbiev against Benavidez. Yeah. Or if Canelo wanted to come up and, dude, Canelo versus Betterbiev would be cool because we might actually see Big Red get knocked out.
Yeah.
That'd be wild. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's the boxing match. There's
Yeah.
stuff on the undercard. It's good on the undercard. I don't have enough knowledge about the boxers there to kind of like speak about it in a recording. But yeah, it's gonna be great. It's this is we what a delight, what a treat that we've got to in the same sense as in MMA, we've been like, what a treat to watch these fights from Max Holloway, and what a treat to watch these fights from Alex Pereira. This year in boxing has been what a treat for Usyk and Fury, and we're gonna get the rematch in December, and then
Yep.
Betterbiev and Bivol. Like these are phenomenal, and then sprinkle a little Inoue on top of that. Oh man, that's baby, you got a stew. That's the good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, that's enough boxing. Let's jump over to Apex Slop.
Apex slop.
Before we talk about the one fight that is interesting, are there any other fights on this card that
Oh
you
boy.
find interesting at all?
Uh, not
What if-
not like interesting as in like interesting for the division, interesting because there's a certain fighter that I like.
Well, how about this? Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. Alex Morono, you'll remember last episode I called out for being the most unathletic man in the UFC, and he's in there fighting D-Rod.
Yeah.
Someone who was beating the shit out of Neil Magny for 3 rounds and then decided, what if I try grappling despite having no grappling? And then got choked out by Neil Magny. Little interested in that fight because I could see Daniel Rodriguez beating the shit out of Alex Morono for 3 rounds and then being like, what if I try grappling with Alex Morono? And then getting tapped out. It's kind of fun. And then the other one, co-main event, mostly just because of his name and his grappling style. Junyoung Park. Do you know what his nickname is?
No, please tell me.
The Iron Turtle.
Fantastic.
I think now I don't want to like face shame this guy. Oh no, he's only 33. Never mind. I thought he was like 45. I thought he was like hella old. He's only 33. Never mind. I was gonna be like, it's kind of cool to see an old guy out here, but 33. He actually has a really weird and unique grappling style. So he's kind of interesting to watch. But he's fighting Brad Tavares, someone who is like probably has the best takedown defense at middleweight. Like, I don't recall a time ever seeing Brad Tavares taken down.
Yeah, I was gonna say is Junior Park going to actually be able to
No,
implement
probably
said
not.
grappling?
No, probably not.
No.
So anyway, but those are the only names I can call out. I was just going down this card, being like, what's on here? And then saw Junior Park, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then Alex Morono, and I was like, oh yeah. But besides that, yeah, this is.
Yeah.
I don't even know who half of these people are, man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we talked about a few of them over these various podcasts in like very brief flashes, like Nico Price and whatnot. But
yeah. Oh, Kayla McKenna's or Corey McKenna's on there. Women's strawweight.
Oh.
I only know her because she's from Wales, and I'm like, yeah, go Wales. Cool. All right, well, let's talk about this fight then. This is the fight that I think we called for.
Yes, we were both like we wanted to see this because exactly like you said, it's a way for the UFC to promote Taira, to bring him up in the ranks against a highly ranked opponent who might not really hurt him. So it's not like they are totally destroying their one prospect.
Exactly. And you know what this means, Colin? We've looked at the metrics. We have about 6 viewers for this show.
Yeah.
I think this means that one of those 6 is Sean Shelby or Mick Maynard. And I think they heard what we said and went, "My God, they had a good idea," and they threw it up. Anyway, well, tell me, are you excited for this fight? Are you nervous for this fight? How do you think this fight is going to look?
I do like this fight. I'm not like nervous per se. Like, okay, when Khalil Roundtree and Alex Pereira was announced, and when they were walking out to their fight, I was nervous because I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen here, and someone is going to die. I feel like I could feel the nerves when they were doing their walkouts, and maybe that'll happen when I watch this fight. But this one I really think is kind of like it is the tale of the veteran in the division trying to keep his spot, trying to make one more run at the title, and the newcomer, like the new blood coming in as well. So, because Royval's already lost twice to Pantoja. So if he wins, I don't know if he'll get a third match against Pantoja,
Yeah, I doubt he will. They have, especially because they have Kai Kara France coming off that that knockout win over Urseg, and so I think they kind of have a like a smorgasbord of lightweights that they can go to.
Flyweights.
Sorry, what did I say?
Lightweights.
Yeah, what a fool. Flyweights. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like the stakes are different now. It's for each of these fighters. It's not like this is a number one contender eliminator fight. It's if Brandon Royval wins, it like keeps his spot up there so that maybe after these next series of challengers, if he still stays up there, he'll get another shot. Or if someone dethrones Pantoja, he can be someone to challenge for it. Whereas Tatsuro Taira, he is this like undefeated prospect from Japan with a totally new market to potentially unlock. Like if he wins, I could definitely see them giving him the title shot against Pantoja.
Yeah.
So that's just like what's
true.
What's at stake here. And for each of them, their styles are, I mean, it's just, it's like you said, like Brandon Royval is skilled. I like I like what he does, but he's not exceptionally dangerous. A lot of his wins come from like various grappling and submissions, which might play right into Tatsuro Taira's game. And Taira has a unique grappling skill set, and from what I've seen, likes to be heavy on top or sweeping to the top. Whereas Brandon Royval, it seems a lot of his submission wins come from like capitalizing on mistakes while on the bottom, or scrambling to the top and like getting a armbar that way or something like that. So so it would be like polar opposite grappling affairs if it does get to that point. But Tatsuro Taira has shown a more willingness and propensity to keep things on the feet, especially in his last couple fights, and then only when someone else initiates the grappling to kind of swarm them there, like with his last win over Alex Perez. So yeah, it's interesting. It's exciting, and the flyweights are definitely a division that needs more attention because it's like you've highlighted before. As soon as we get a really good challenger or an exciting challenger, they've been like buried on the undercard for so long that when they do headline an event or co-headline an event, it's like, okay, who is this person? I know nothing about them.
Yeah. I mean, it's still fucked up that they are headlining events, but they're headlining Apex events.
Yeah.
Why is this not in the Tokyo Dome? Why is this not why was this fight not on pay-per-view last week? Right? Why was Roman Dolidze and Kevin Holland on that pay-per-view and not this night? Kevin Holland, Roman Dolidze is the perfect Apex headliner. Right? It's just like the most like who gives a shit fight that could be entertaining for 5 seconds. You throw it on there. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about what you know about Tatsuro Taira's like gas tank or what we've seen of that, because I think you mentioned like Royval being able to capitalize on mistakes his opponents make. That's kind of my feeling that I've always had with Royval is like he's not actually skill wise and like strategy wise an elite flyweight. He just kind of weaponizes his cardio, and he kind of throws a bunch of leaf blower offense, right? He just throws a shitload of offense out there that doesn't really hurt you. But eventually you just get tired and frustrated, and so you make a mistake, and then he snatches submission. And so the question is, especially because Tatsuro Taira is young, and probably is a little bit more prone than veterans to getting flustered, when there's a bunch of that, just hot air coming at him in the form of fists and kicks. How's Taira's cardio and like ability to like stay calm under pressure?
Well, stay calm under pressure. I think when it comes to like he's if he has to, I think he can force the grappling, which is where he is very comfortable. So if he gets in danger, like on the feet, or he's clearly outmatched there, he'll go for some sort of takedown or try to turn it into a wrestling affair, which I think he feels way more confident in. But his striking has improved significantly, so he may not feel the need for that. I don't think he's really been tested in terms of cardiovascular because looking back at this, only two of his fights have gone the distance, and from my memory, they don't seem very like it didn't seem like he was like totally gassed out or just like hang on for survival at the end, like this past weekend that we saw. So yeah, I don't know if he's been tested, but then again, this is going to be a 5-round fight, so he's never been to championship rounds, whereas Brandon Royval has. So yeah, I think that is a good it's just an unknown, because he's young, he's hungry, so maybe he's in shape, maybe he's trained for it, or maybe he will fall prey to that, kind of newbie trap of just being excited, being hyped up, and kind of spend everything in the first 2 to 3 rounds, and then you get into deep waters and he's not going to know what to do. So that's kind of what I called out last time, where if just because he's so young and he is relatively unexperienced. I mean, yes, he's had 16 fights, but still, like, he's what, 22? 24.
Yeah.
So, that's still very young in the game. So, it's there's, experience is what will fuel a lot of these lessons. And I don't know, will this be the one where he actually has to gain that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that he'll be able to do this, especially like it does seem like he hits decently hard. I'm looking back at the stats for the Brandon Royval's last fight against Brandon Moreno, a fight which he won the decision. But looking through, when I talk about leaf blower offense, I mean like just a shitload of volume that doesn't really land or doesn't really hurt. When I go through the rounds, Brandon Royval had double the output of strikes thrown. He threw 556 strikes in that fight and only land 177. So a 28% landing rate. And Brandon Moreno threw 219, so less than half, and he landed 119. Landed like,
wow,
close to the same, like, And Brandon Royval still won that fight mostly off of just throwing, right? The judges just get so persuaded by, oh man, he threw like 7 jabs in a row and they all landed on the forearms, but that must be something rather than the one punch that actually hit him. And Brandon Moreno wasn't able to kind of like take that decision. Yeah, like in looking at like his throwing across the rounds, 43 strikes in the first round, second round was 87. Fourth round was 161, fifth round 140. So he builds and constantly throws. He's not knocking people out with these, right? He is just throwing them. But I do wonder if that just dissuades Taira off of his game. Even though, yeah, it doesn't seem like these are the most damaging strikes. Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't really had to fight someone who fights in volume like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, yeah, because Perez was more of just like a big one-punch hitter. Like, he could swarm a little bit. Yeah, and then like Aguilar, Vergara, none of these guys are even like, top 10. So, yeah, I'm interested to see. What's your pick for this fight? You made me pick Bivol Betterbiev.
I'm gonna go Taira. I think he'll get the decision just by being dominant on the ground and like constantly going for like sweeps and submissions and get close on a few of them, if not actually getting the submission like fairly like second or third round.
Okay. Submission. What do you have an idea of what kind of submission he's going to get on him?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. He's very creative in his takedowns and his submission, so he might pull something kind of weird and crazy like he did in his last fight. So, but a safe bet would be like rear naked choke or something. He would just, as Brandon Royval was trying to, like try to bridge to get out, or just like gives up his back and Taira just snatches onto that there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be it's gonna be, hopefully it'll be good. Hopefully it'll be entertaining. We'll all be coming off of the high of Betterbiev Bivol, so it's gotta do something to live up to it. Well, so what do you do at the flyweight division? Because we still have Pantoja at the top, who doesn't have a fight, even though he fought a while ago.
Yeah, like last month, right?
Was that right? No,
I think it was.
Who did he fight last month? He fought Ursay.
Oh wait, no, I thought
301.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of Steve Ursay. Yeah, no, because he fought recently. So
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't have any fights lined up yet.
No. Well, it's weird too because the number one contender is Brandon Royval, which we're not going to talk about the rankings. They're stupid and dumb. Brandon. Oh, I was thinking about that too. You had brought up like, what about this? Like, Dana White saying like we're gonna like avoid the rankings anymore. Like, do you know how the rankings are made?
Yeah, we talked about this. Isn't it like a handout that's given out to all like media and judges and there's like a bunch. There's a big pool of people they send out like a packet to. That's kind of like hinted at what it should be, and they basically submit their votes, and then they're just all tallied, right?
Yeah, it's less than 15 people, and they are given a packet beforehand to go like, if this person wins or if this person loses, we recommend you move them to this position on the rankings. So it already is basically just Dana White deciding where he wants to put people in the rankings.
Yeah.
So this whole like avoiding the rankings thing, or being like, I don't like think Aldo should go down in the rankings, even though I think looking on their website, Aldo did go down one place in the rankings, and Batista did go up. But like, yeah, they kind of already decide how this works.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Mine was more about like the whole like, okay, despite the rankings or despite the win-loss record in recent history, if Dana White's just like, well, you're gonna get the title shot now. Well, you're gonna, that's kind of like, okay, like it doesn't really matter then.
Yeah. Well, it's like a weird thing, right? Because like even when it does line up where the rankings do matter, right? For instance, he on Tuesday came out and said Sean Strickland is next for Dricus du Plessis.
Yeah.
Which again, it sounds like Dricus is under the impression that in February he's fighting on the Sydney card, which is weird. So I wonder if they're also kind of waiting for Robert Whitaker. If Robert Whitaker beats Hamzat, they can just
Yeah.
go, oh, actually, we're going to give it to him rather than Sean Strickland.
Mm.
But like Sean Strickland's only coming off of one win since losing, and he's like
Yeah.
held this number one contender spot, which is really stupid, right? It's Robert Whitaker's like stringing multiple wins together, right? He will have beaten Paulo Costa, Nasruddin, not Imavov. What was the other guy? Some other dude, uh, and then Hamzat. And like
Yeah.
I don't understand how Sean Strickland, Aliskerov, that's his name. Sean Strickland will have gotten it. So it's a very weird, yeah, a weird thing. Anyway, but we're going back to flyweight. We love flyweight. Flyweight's a good division. Pantoja. The weird thing is he has wins over Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno. But then we do have kind of this run of 3 or 4 people that could fight for the title.
Yeah.
Amir Albazi, Kai Kara France, Tatsuro Taira, and then we're getting into Alex Perez, Mateusz Nicolau, Steve Ursig. Whatever happened to Manal Kopp?
Didn't we talk about him fairly recently?
Oh, he lost to Makayev, and then they just cut Makayev.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel like I just did Makayev dirty there. I totally forgot he existed. He was on a 6-fight win streak, and the UFC cut him. Bummer. Yeah. Okay. So we only really have 3 contenders. So.
Well, 3 new contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I'd say, a fairly healthy division if you've got a champion, 3 healthy contenders, like new contenders, and some people who have been in the division for a while who are trying to like work their way back up. With Moreno and Royval. So I mean, that's 6 people right there. That's way more than some of these other divisions.
Yeah, and we've got Josh Van floating around out there, not even in the top 15 yet. So
yeah.
So okay, let's assume Tatsuro Taira does exactly what we say he does. Comes out, he weathers the stream of impotent yet high volume offense of Brandon Royval, ends up taking the back, gets a submission. How do you like his chances as a 24-year-old, or maybe he'll be 25 if he's next in line against Alexandre Pantoja? Do you think that's rushing him still as a young guy, or do you think like that's the right escalation for him?
I think okay. If this was any other division that the UFC doesn't hate so much, like I think it's still a good matchup if Taira wins because it will be his first. It will be an opportunity to build up some momentum and fanfare and a following around him, so that even if he lost against Pantoja, like it would still bring enough eyes to him that he could start to, and he's young, that he could rebuild momentum and challenge again, especially if it was a close fight. Because I really could see this just going the whole like experience versus inexperience, like how past champions were like derailed in their first run to the title, like GSP, for example. However, this is flyweight, so it's almost like any loss you have, it's almost like either A, you are thrown way down the ladder, or you're like you're going to be shuffled way low on the prelim card, or like your division just might fold entirely. It's really about like whoever wins, are they good enough to like basically lean the entire division on?
Yeah.
And Taira does have a unique skill set that is dynamic and exciting. Like it's not just like lay and pray heavy wrestling. It's like I'm going to do sweeps and techniques and takedowns that most people won't see coming. And for the average fan, like they may not, it would take them seeing his fights to actually like be drawn into that. So he just needs more eyes on him.
Yeah, and I mean they are giving him headlining fights, but it is again in the Apex. So like, how many people are watching
Yeah.
with bated breath? I will say, what his finish rate. Of his 16 wins, he only has 1, 2, 3, 4 decisions. So
Yeah.
he's got a pretty high finishing rate. Yeah, and there's a good amount of TKOs and submissions in there. So he is pretty exciting. And the weird thing is, like you said, like At flyweight, it's this constant like, will Dana shutter the division or not? And the best indication is like, is there either like a star in line with BJ Penn that is so blood and guts that Dana is really into that, or are there people at the top of the division and especially champions who unlock a certain market?
Yes,
And you
yes,
have this
and
weird thing where it's like Pantoja is one of two Brazilian champions. Brandon Moreno was for a time their only Mexican champion.
mhm.
Kai Kara France is a Oceanic New Zealand, if he wins, champion, and Tatsuro Taira would be the only Japanese champion.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the division with the most amount of challengers that unlock markets for the
Mhm.
UFC, and yet they routinely are like, yo, fuck flyweight. Come on, man. Yeah, it's really. I do wonder, like, if we could get Dana White to like admit what he really would want, like what divisions he would actually like close down.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling too he might also close down bantamweight, right? I feel like he
Men's
also does.
bantamweight?
Yeah, I do. I think he would
What?
be like, yeah, he talked up Sean O'Malley so much despite that division before Sean O'Malley became champion, and despite that division being awesome leading up to Sean O'Malley getting the belt, and yet he would only ever talk about like this one person. And now that he's not a champion, he's like, Marab's an idiot. Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We hope Sean O'Malley will come back faster, from his like hip tear. And it's this constant like talking about like, God, this division's nothing without Sean O'Malley. And it's like, what are you talking about? This division's amazing. So I have
Yeah.
a feeling that he would just close this division down.
Jesus.
If it wasn't for that. It's kind of
Imagine if
like,
they got rid of flyweight and bantamweight.
dude,
Like,
I could see it. Dana White loves middleweight and above. That's why middleweights are constantly headlining cards, and then there's a bunch of light heavyweight and heavyweight slop. Like, he really is that guy at a UFC event who's like, if the person's smaller than me, despite the fact that you're like 200 pounds with a big beer gut, he's like, I could beat Demetrius Johnson's ass, and you're like, dude, shut up, you can't. Yeah, it's pretty baffling.
yeah.
Yeah. So flyweight, I mean, we've got something to look forward to. And Brandon Moreno is coming back, and he's fighting Amir Albazi. Everyone kind of forgets about Amir
Yeah.
Albazi. So that'll be good. Yeah, but two great fights, right? And if you want to see big uglies, we've got a light heavyweight fight, and they're the two best big uglies that there have been in a long time. And if you want to see, Brandon Royval too. I always joke about flyweights when they start grappling, kind of looking like two lizards fucking. Brandon Royval really is like a little tiny lizard, just like flailing and like wigging out when he gets on bottom, and that's pretty entertaining to watch. I hope Taira walks away with it, partially to avenge Brandon Moreno's loss, where he they clearly won that fight, and the judges gave it to Royval on like strikes thrown rather than strikes thrown. You're just like, this is so silly. Anyway, anything else from this weekend to talk about?
No, I mean, for being a like main pay-per-view for the UFC, but also actually I think we're not gonna have fights for 2 weeks after this, right? There's no card after this one next week, right?
Yeah, there is. There's the
Oh yeah, no, there is.
Hernandez
Yeah,
and Pereira, baby.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and
Your
then
favorite Michelle Pereira,
yeah, exactly.
also
So
at the fucking Apex. That's why.
yeah,
Jesus.
back to back Apex, but that one actually has some interesting stuff. There's Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips at bantamweight, and
Okay.
then there's Suma Derji and Charles Johnson at flyweight. Another interesting flyweight fight, and then Asu Almubayev, the guy from Kazakhstan, the little tiny like 5'2".
Oh right. Yeah.
He's fighting number 7. So again, we've got a good amount of movement in the flyweight division. We're building up contenders. So
But look at this card. Like bantamweight, flyweight, featherweight, bantamweight, flyweight, bantamweight, and then middleweight.
yeah. But isn't that it's baffling because it's like flyweight and bantamweight are usually very good, and they're usually very entertaining, even out of the rankings, even like top 30 fighters or top 40 fighters. And yet they routinely bury these divisions on Apex cards. They treat them like the overflow divisions. Right? That's why I'm saying, like, I think flyweight and bantamweight would be cut from the UFC if Dana had his way. Because he doesn't they don't build up contenders in a really like major way in those divisions, and they don't try to build up the next generation of contenders, right? They
Right.
might go like, okay, we'll give Corey Sandhagen some shine, we'll give Jose Aldo some shine, but when you're like, hey, in 5 years when we need these guys who are cutting their teeth now to be our contenders and champions, where did you put them on divisions or on cards? We put them at Apex, and like Apex cards after a big pay-per-view where there's always a slump in viewership. It's like, what do you? And then we get to pay-per-views, and their prelims are consistently middleweights and bullshit fights.
Mhm.
I will say I am very happy to see that the curtain jerker for this one is Austin Lane and Robles Despaigne. That's a cool heavyweight fight, and especially because they really were thinking Despaigne was going to be like the next big heavyweight
Mhm.
contender. And then he absolutely, I mean, a historic shitting of the bed in his last fight. It was clear that he came out, and when he fought Acosta, he had never once in his life trained any form of grappling, ever. So that's cool. Two giant men that have no skill but are like hyper athletic fighting, and they're where heavyweight should be at the very beginning of a card when nobody's in the arena. Yeah. But yeah. No, I like next week's card actually I think is like better overall than it doesn't have
Alright.
Taira and Royval, but
Yeah, yeah.
Hernandez Pereira, Rob Font, Kyler Phillips, Sumaderji, Charles Johnson, Nicolau, also Almabayev. I don't know why they keep giving Darren Elkins fights, that poor bastard. But yeah. Well, I shouldn't be mean. I'm saying that that's disrespectful in light of. Did you see any of the new recent reporting around the UFC antitrust lawsuit?
No, 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 no. You've been my sole like source of knowledge and information on that.
Yeah. So, like, long story short is it had initially been two classes of class action lawsuit. The judge rejected it, and now they have split the two classes apart. So, right, one is from 2006 to 2017, and the other one is 2017 till now. So the earlier class is known as the Lee class because it was Kung Lee was the first name plaintiff on that one. Anyway, they upped it by I think about $40 million for the people who have fought there. So I think calculated out because they have basically the calculations for exactly how much everyone will make. Most fighters will make around $100,000 or more. From the settlement, with Anderson Silva leading the pack with $10 million that he will get
Whoa.
from the settlement overall. Yeah. So yeah, a good amount of fighters will get $500,000. A couple will get $1 million. But they had to go back to the judge and say, why should we accept? Because the judge had said like, hey, you're way under. I think it had been originally $345 million as the settlement. And he said, that's way, but you convinced me that like they were entitled to closer to like $1.8 billion. So why are you
Jesus.
settling for so low? And so the plaintiffs, the fighters, and their legal team had to put forth why the judge should accept it for, is it 385 million now? And they had testimonials from a lot of these fighters talking about how fucking broken their bodies are, their brains are, their life is, how poor they are,
Yeah.
not being able to afford medical care, struggling to even hold down a simple job because of the early effects of CTE that they're experiencing. How they've lost homes, have been homeless, and like fighters that we know, Diego Sanchez, Nate Quarry, John Howard, who I can't, but reading some of these, it is absolutely heartbreaking. Even Wanderlei Silva on there talking about like he needs nose surgery because he can't breathe, and
Jeez.
it's disrupting his like sleep. And then because he can't sleep, he has a hard time. Like he'll like wander off and like kind of doesn't know where he is and shit. And people talking about early onset effects of CTE. So sorry, Darren Elkins, because I know you're doing this because you need the money and the UFC's fucked you over and not paid you what you were due. But But yeah, it's heartbreaking. It does in hearing some of the reporting on it. I'm like, God, it does make it hard to kind of watch this because you know what the effects are that these guys are going through, and a lot of these guys do not get paid anything. Anyway, that's why we have to appreciate Khalil Roundtree and all the fighters when they go out there and they put on those performances because we're getting a glimpse at what happens on the other side of those performances. Yeah, it's a bummer. Anyway, so sorry, Darren Elkins. That was disrespectful. You're out here grinding. Good for you. Hey, and he has a win back in 2022. So all right, cool. I hope you get another one, man. Yeah, it might be a fight between him and Daniel Pineda for the worst tattoos in the UFC. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Oh no, wait.
Coming in with
Actually,
the hot facts here.
yeah. Yeah. Well, have you seen Darren Elkins? He's got the damage tattooed on his chest. That phrase,
No,
the damage. Yeah.
the damage. Let
The
me see this.
damage. And it looks like it's, I don't even know. It looks like it's meant to replicate like if they were like I don't know, like he cut it into his chest and then they
Oh
stapled
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a bad one. It's a bad one. Anyway, so yeah, watch boxing this weekend. That's the moral of that story. Where they pay people what they're worth usually. Yeah. All right, everybody. This has been Two Fight Fans Podcast. I'm one fight fan, Stuart.
I'm the other Colin.
Watch boxing this weekend. Watch Taira, and then next week we'll come back. We'll talk about how amazing it was to watch Bivol and Betterbiev fight. We'll say, hey, wasn't it great that Taira was able to finish Brandon Royval? Or, goddamn it, Brandon Royval threw 800 strikes and landed none of them, yet he still won the fight. That'll be what we say. And then the following weekend, we have another Apex slop card, but some actually interesting fights. And for the only time in this entire podcast history, I'm calling the shot now. It's going to be the first and last time we talk about a PFL card.
That's going to be next weekend, huh?
That is, yeah. Battle for the Giant.
All right.
We actually have like 4 good fights on that card. We have Francis Ngannou versus Renan Ferreira. We have Larissa Pacheco fighting Chris Cyborg. If Pacheco wins this, she will have beaten both Cyborg and Kayla Harrison. We also have AJ McKee on this card. We've got some good fights. So yeah, we'll talk about those 2 cards. And yeah. All right, everybody. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh, it's not stopping.
Bye.
It didn't stop.
Ah.
We're still going.